P9-384. Okay. Interfund, prepare all journal entries, budget and actual required in all funds and the GCA, GLTL accounts to record the following transactions and events. The state issued $50 million of 4% 20-year term bonds at 105, which means 105% of par. Okay, so there was a 5% premium. To provide financing for construction of a new state legislative office building. The premium, which is to be used for debt service, was transferred to the appropriate fund. Bond issue costs of $75,000 were paid directly from the general fund. Bonds were issued on April 1st, and annual interest is due each March 31st. Okay? So, for number one, we have cash of $52,500,000. So the $50 million of bonds plus the 5% premium. Okay? That make sense? Then we're going to transfer the premium. It says it's used to be it's to be used for debt service, so we're going to transfer it to the debt services fund. Right? The bond issue costs were paid out of the general fund. The debt service fund is going to receive the bond premium. And you're going to adjust your general long-term liabilities accounts accordingly. Questions?
Scroll up a little bit.
Scroll up this way.
Yeah.
What do you have questions on?
Does it matter what order they go in?
The entries?
Yes.
No. I grouped them up like this just so that I didn't have to write the fund multiple times. But
And I did them in the order that I read them
Sure.
so that I could
that's fine.
like check them off as I went.
It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't make any difference.
Okay.
What was the long-term liability fund name of?
The bottom, the non-fund, right? Think about your general accrual accounting, right? You'd credit the liability to increase the liability. You would credit the premium, and you debit, right, your equity or your cash. But we've done the cash elsewhere, right? So we're splitting those two pieces. That make sense? It's the same thing. It's the same thing you do. Different terminology. Okay. Number two. Number two says the state signed contracts for $55 million for construction of the building. Costs incurred for construction of the office building during 2001 amounted to $18 million, and all but 10% was paid. So we're going to set up the budget. All right, we signed the contract, so we're going to set up the budget. $55 million. Then we're going to reverse the portion of the budget, right, that came due, $18 million. We're going to record the actual expenditure for capital outlay. Okay? This is all happening in the capital projects fund. Minus, we spent cash minus our retainage, right? We did that. You remember that from last week? Minus our retainage, which they tell you is 10%. Then you're going to put in construction in progress, the construction that's in progress. Right? What kind of account is construction in progress? Any ideas? What do you think it is?
It would be, well, the construction that had been
Sure.
done up to that time.
Right, and that's, You have three choices, right? It can be an asset, a liability, or a fund balance net position. What is it? It's an asset.
Stuff that's been done.
Right. It's just like work in process, right? If you're in a manufacturing environment. Okay? If you're building it, if you're building that asset, it's going to go in construction in progress until it's done. Right? Once it's put into service, then you're going to move it to the actual asset category. I mean the actual asset account where it's going to sit. Right? Okay? Any questions on 2?
I didn't have to do any,
Didn't have to do any.
I think I have an entry for, I have an entry for interest.
Interest.
For,
In number 2?
Yeah,
Okay, why?
I don't know. Just gonna look.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's a good question. Number 3, interest comes into play.
Maybe I just have it on the wrong
Was it?
line.
Yeah. Did it go with number 3? So number 3 says, annual interest of $2 million was paid on the bonds on March 31st, 2002. So in our debt service fund, we pay $2 million of bond interest. And we pay that in cash. We have a debit to our expenditure. We have a credit to cash. And then the entry that's the implicit entry, right, is the bonds payable year-end adjustment. Now you could have put this in 3 or 4, because 4 is where, 4 you switched over years, but you have to record the amortization of that premium, right? Which you would do in financial accounting. Okay? Again, back to the accrual method. You have to remember to make those adjustments. Okay? Question? And I put a note here, page 369, if you want to look back at amortizing the premium. Okay? Number 4, general fund resources, $5 million were transferred to the Legislative Office Building Capital Projects Fund during 2002 for use on the project. So we have 2 pieces. We're transferring it from the general fund, so you have an other financing uses of $5 million in the general fund, in cash going out. And then in the capital projects fund, you have $5 million coming in cash, and other financing sources. Probably should have put. Okay. Questions on that one? 5. Project was completed. Expenditures in 2002 total $36,500,000, and all fund liabilities were paid. The remaining resources to be used for debt service were paid to the appropriate fund. So remember, we had $37 million left over in our budget, right? Back from number 2. So $55 million. We had taken $18 million out. We have $37 million now that we have to reverse. Okay, so we're actually spending it. You're going to pay out your expenditure. You're also going to pay out your contract payable. Why? Because it's complete, right? And accepted, put into service. So you have the leftover transfer gets sent to the debt services fund. The debt service fund accepts that, and you record the asset because it's put into service. Okay? Questions? You have a year-end adjustment, right? Just like the other time. We have to amortize our premium on bonds payable. Which, again, you would do in financial. Questions?
Oh, I see. I'm just not in your order. That's what threw me off for
Sure.
a second.
Yes.
Why did that amount change in the M1?
Why did this amount change?
125?
Any guesses? Okay, so this is 125. This one up here was 93,750. Why are they different? When was the bond issued? When was it issued?
So, April 1st.
April 1st. So I'm at the end of my fiscal year, right? If I'm at the end of my fiscal year, I'm going to do 3/4 of it, right? And then I'm going to pay the interest on March 31st, which is the first quarter of the next year. Make sense? So your equation, you have the bond amount divided by the 20 years times 3/4. I'm sorry, the bond premium amount. Right? Because that's what we're amortizing. We're not amortizing the bond. We're amortizing the premium. And then down here, this number is higher because here you're doing a full year. So you have the 2.5 million divided by 20, right? Because that's the next year.
I gotcha.
Does that make sense? So the 93,750 is 3/4 of the 125. You guys aren't very talkative tonight.
We're depressed. We are all very depressed.
We're extremely depressed.
Why are we depressed?
This is class.
I
We
didn't-
like you, we just don't like this class.
I understand. That's fine.
I don't understand this class at all.
I just didn't get
Neither
that
do
part
I.
there.
We're getting migraines tonight.
Nightly. Every night?
I don't
Every
know,
night, I work on this, yep.
I don't know about
Every
that.
night.
I can last for about 2 hours and then literally I cannot even see straight or think straight anymore.
Sure. Yeah, you can't do it at one sitting. I agree.
Oh my gosh, no.
You can't do it at one sitting.
Pass out if I
Or
try to
ever.
program an assessment.
You can do it.
Obviously not.
It would really help to have a county lab with this.
Something
I
with-
don't know why we
with
didn't do
samples.
that,
I think this textbook, I mean, it's pretty informational, but
It's hard to
it's
find.
pretty dry.
Sure.
It's hard to
It's like reading
understand.
tax forms, too.
Sure.
I just can't retain.
And that's like a foreign
if you do
language.
that.
If we didn't
Laws.
understand it to begin with, you can't read this book.
Okay.
It doesn't help. You can't understand it after reading it. It makes it worse.
So how are you making progress on the homework
Not.
and on your your team cases?
Not.
There are a few gifted in this class.
Okay.
We have them dispersed through the
Okay.
A lot of persistence and a lot of ibuprofen and a lot of crying.
Okay.
Google.
Crying, yes. I relate.
I'm gonna say I go straight to the problem. I
Uh-huh.
go straight to the problems. I work
I'm trying to
myself
figure
back
it
to
out.
page
Sure.
93 in
Sure.
chapter 11,
Uh-huh.
and I mean it's
Sure.
grueling hours.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I can't promise that for the next 2 weeks after this, so I'm
Understood.
getting good grades these weeks.
Well, keep doing the best you can. Okay. You'll all get through
We
as
hope.
long as you turn stuff in.
Do they actually expect us to know what we're doing afterwards?
Oh,
Sure.
Yeah, well, that's not.
that's been perfect.
Do they expect it to be perfect? No.
you're gonna be working for an accounting company.
Sure.
What's each other for that?
And if we had given you my accounting lab, do you think you would know more
Yes,
than you know now?
yes,
Do you?
yes.
Because
Yeah.
working.
I think it helps explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if we get stuck on the accounting lab, it hasn't helped me solve this.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So it won't give you
It
like
gives you
the
some
answers
examples.
for the
Breaks it
problem
down.
we're working on, but it
Gives
takes
you
you through the whole
examples.
process. You can see what you're supposed to be doing and where they're pulling what numbers from where and why.
Exactly.
Okay. And so is that different than doing it this way?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Well, because we're just
Well,
not used to doing
because
it, that's
it's
why.
harder to find the information in here versus they're saying.
Versus them giving it
this,
to you?
well,
Well, they're not
this is,
giving you anything.
they're not giving you
showing
answers, but they're
how
saying,
you need to do
this
it.
is how we this is the type of problem this is, and this is
Okay.
what we're trying to do.
Sure.
Where this is hard to, it doesn't explain it to the point where it's very easily understandable.
We've been given one model for the first
Right.
year that we've been doing this, and now we're just being thrown to the sharks.
Like,
I
am
get
I,
that.
like before Warren Pacific, because I didn't take the other accounting course, because I went to PCC, and so I had taken all my accounting courses through
Yeah.
that. It was a completely different way